I'm acutely aware that my tastes are eclectic, strange, atypical, and maybe even a little abnormal. I have spent way too much time researching the lives of artists and artisans that no one really cares about anymore. Of course, I still have mainstream interests. I'm no cinematic hipster. But there is something to be said about obscurity and its appeal to me. It's quite possible that my love for the obscure and forgotten comes from the film that has been my favorite since my childhood. In fact, I can't actually remember having a favorite film other than this one. And unwaveringly, I have remained consistent throughout my childhood, adolescence, and even into my adulthood. I didn't set out to make this film my favorite. It just sort of became my favorite. I'm not sure I can explain why I love my favorite film. I could extol its virtues as maybe an adaptation from a well-known literary work, its workmanlike and competent direction from an award-winning director, or its solid acting from recognizable and award-winning actors. But none of that really explains what the film does to merit the title of my favorite film. Oh, by the way, the film in question is Walt Disney's 1960 live-action film Kidnapped, starring James MacArthur and Peter Finch and featuring the on-screen debut of Peter O'Toole. It's, of course, based on the Robert Louis Stevenson novel of the same name, and was written and directed by Robert Stevenson, which is quite a coincidence in names. The film is great. At least, I think it's great. I often wonder if other people would think it's great. I honestly don't know what the majority of people would think about this film, because to my knowledge, it's relatively forgotten. I tried to look up the movie on Rotten Tomatoes and I found it had no score. And when I tried to click on that website's hypothetical page for the film, I found that the link didn't work. No luck on Metacritic. IMDb boasted a staggering, well, at least for this film, a staggering number of ratings, 1,111, which gave the film a score of 6.7 out of 10, which gives my favorite film a lower score than other inferior, at least in my opinion, inferior movies. So it seems hardly anyone, that is if they've actually seen it in the first place. You see, Disney being Disney, they don't want you to see some of their film canon. And so they've hid many of their films behind the somehow still existing Disney Movie Club, including Kidnapped. So it's hard to find, and it's not remembered. And the people who do take the time to chime in about it on IMDb thought it was a slightly below average film. So what makes the film my favorite? Is it the Academy Award nominated actors, like I mentioned before? Peter Finch was certainly capable of iconic and culture-defining performances, such as Network. As was Peter O'Toole, who is often remembered for Lawrence of Arabia. James MacArthur, the star of the film, was no cultural slouch either. But I doubt that anybody really thinks of these performances when they think of these actors. Peter O'Toole certainly isn't celebrated for his debut, as good as it might have been. And Peter Finch certainly wasn't nominated for the Academy Award for this performance, as he would later be for Network. But it still makes me wonder, am I the only one who sees the master and craft of this film? The characters that seem to jump from the screen, the dialogue, most of which is taken directly from the original Stevenson novel, and which seems to roll off the tongue and speaks volumes about the world and the characters and people that inhabit it. Am I crazy? Is the film only average? Is the story of Kidnapped no more than an average tale of a boy coming of age? I don't know. But it doesn't really matter, because no matter what this movie is thought of by others, no matter how many people name Citizen Kane, or Casablanca, Vertigo, or any other celebrated film as the greatest of all time, there can be no replacing Kidnapped, in my mind, as not only my favorite film, but the greatest film I've ever seen. Well, at least for me, anyways.
Explosion! Fly Fox!